My fiance's mother demanded my engagement ring back at dinner, so I told the whole restaurant the truth about her family heirlooms. The thing about the ring was that it wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a promise, a glittering, ruby-eyed promise that I was finally enough. When Leon's mother, Juliet, placed that antique ring in my palm, her fingers were cold and her smile was thin, but I didn't care. I saw it as an heirloom. A tangible link to a family history I was so desperate to be a part of. For 2 years, I thought it was a symbol of my acceptance. I was wrong. It was a leash. And the moment I tried to pull away, she yanked it so hard, I thought my entire world would shatter. I'm standing in the middle of a crowded restaurant now, and the air smells of garlic and white wine, but all I can taste is the bitter ash of betrayal. The ruby on my finger feels like a drop of blood, and I'm about to find out exactly whose blood it is. I had always loved Leon's family home. It wasn't a mansion, but it had this grand, decaying elegance that I found utterly charming. The kind of place where the wallpaper told stories and the floorboards creaked in a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. Juliet, his mother, was the keeper of that history. She was a tall, slender woman with silver-streaked hair and an artist's eye for detail. For the first year of our relationship, she was my biggest advocate. She taught me the difference between a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc, the correct way to fold a fitted sheet, and the names of all the past owners of the house, which were immortalized in faded photographs along the main staircase. I felt like a student in a secret school of domesticity, and I was eager to learn. Leon was the sun in her universe, and I knew that. He was her only child, a gentle giant of a man who worked as an architect and had a passion for restoring old buildings. He saw the beauty in decay, just like his mother. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I was a graphic designer, my laptop glowing in the dim light, and he was sketching a Victorian facade on a napkin. He asked if he could borrow my pencil sharpener, and we've been sharpening each other's edges ever since. Our life was a quiet sort of bliss. Sunday mornings were for reading the paper in our sun-drenched apartment, and Saturday evenings were for trying out new, overly complicated recipes in our tiny kitchen. He'd hum old jazz tunes while he chopped vegetables, and I'd try not to burn the bread. It was simple. It was perfect. Juliet's approval meant the world to me. She wasn't the type to warm up to everyone. She was discerning, some might even say critical, but with me, she seemed genuinely delighted. She'd call me on Wednesdays just to chat, to ask about my day, and to tell me about the neighborhood gossip. We had a little ritual on the first Sunday of every month. Afternoon tea in her garden. She'd bring out a silver tray with mismatched cups and small, elegant cakes. We'd sit under the ancient oak tree, and she would tell me stories about her travels, her late husband, and the life she had built. I felt like I was being woven into the fabric of her world, a new thread being gently stitched into a beautiful, intricate tapestry. The proposal happened on a rainy Tuesday, which was so perfectly us. Leon came home with a drenched bouquet of peonies and a nervous smile. He led me to the living room, knelt by the coffee table where our takeout containers were still sitting, and pulled out a small velvet box. The ring inside was breathtaking. A single deep red ruby, the color of a pomegranate seed, flanked by 2 delicate diamonds, all set in intricate rose gold filigree. It wasn't like any ring I'd seen in a magazine. It was unique, with a story etched into its very design. He told me it had belonged to his great-grandmother, a woman who was rumored to be a talented painter who had run away with a musician to Paris. "It's meant for you," Leon said, his eyes shining. "It's for the person who makes the family history feel alive." I said yes before he could even finish his sentence. But a shift happened. It was subtle at first. The weekly phone calls became more frequent, but their nature changed. Juliet would call to ask about the ring, as it became known. It was always the ring. "Oh, I do hope the ruby is catching the light properly, darling," she'd say. "Remember, it's a precious stone. It needs to be protected from harsh soaps." When I wore it, I always felt a rush of confidence, she'd reminisce. That ring has seen so many grand parties and important meetings. It's part of the family's legacy. The stories once about her travels became solely about the ring's journey. She talked about how her mother-in-law had passed it to her, and how she had always dreamed of passing it to the right woman. The emphasis on the right woman started to feel pointed, like a needle poking at the edge of a perfectly blown glass bubble. Then came the suggestion for a prenuptial agreement. We were having dinner at her house. The dining room was lit by a single antique chandelier that cast dancing shadows on the walls. She placed a glass of deep red wine in front of me, the color a near-perfect match to my ring. The conversation was light until it wasn't. "Leon, darling," she said, her voice honeyed with false casualness, "I was talking to Mr. Henderson, our family lawyer, and he brought up something terribly practical, about securing the future. For the family name, you understand." Leon looked confused. "What do you mean, Mother?" "Well, this property, the estate, it's been in our family for 5 generations. It's not just a house, it's a legacy. It would be foolish to not have some contingencies in place, just simple legal documents, that's all. Protecting what's ours." She took a sip of her wine, her eyes never leaving mine. The ruby on my finger suddenly felt heavy, its warmth replaced by a cold, metallic chill. I saw it then, not as a symbol of love, but as a marker of ownership. The ring wasn't a gift, it was a lease. I was being allowed to wear it, to be a part of the story, as long as I signed on the dotted line that meant I'd never have a claim to any of it. She wasn't celebrating me joining the family. She was ensuring I couldn't take anything from it. I looked at Leon, waiting for him to shut it down, to tell her it was a ridiculous, hurtful idea. He just looked down at his plate, his hand fidgeting with the stem of his wine glass. "It's just a formality, babe," he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "It's what people do." My heart sank into the pit of my stomach. That was the first real crack. It wasn't just a crack in our future plans. It was a fissure in the world I thought we were building together. I loved the ring, not for its value, but for its history. For what I thought it represented. It was as if I'd been handed a beautiful, hardbound book, only to be told I was merely a borrower, and the library was run by a woman who would be checking to see if I'd dog-eared any pages. 2 weeks before the wedding, I had a moment of clarity. I was looking at my reflection in the window of a vintage store downtown. The ring glinted under the fluorescent lights. Suddenly, I didn't see my smile in the glass. I saw Juliet's. The way she tilted her head, the way her fingers delicately touched the stem of her glasses. I saw a woman who had molded a perfect son and was now trying to mold his perfect wife. The ring, I realized, was just an instrument of control. It wasn't a token of love. It was a souvenir from a museum she curated. I called Leon. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice more steady than I felt. "It's about the prenup, and about your mother. We need to have a conversation." Without her, he was silent for a long moment. "All right," he finally said. "Let's meet for dinner. Just us, at the Milano. Tomorrow night." I hung up and felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he would see my side. Maybe he'd finally draw a line with her, and we could be the team we always thought we were. It was the last feeling of normalcy I had. I got to the restaurant early, a place we always went for special occasions. The air smelled of basil and garlic, and the maitre d' greeted me with a familiar smile. He led me to a quiet booth in the back, a spot where I could watch the door. I ordered a glass of water and waited. I started to feel a swell of hope. I was going to tell him that his mother needed to step back, that we were building our own future, our own history. I would talk about the ring not as a symbol of his family, but as a start to a new one. I was rehearsing my speech, my hand resting on the table, the ruby glinting under the soft glow of the candlelight, when I saw him walk in, my breath caught in my throat. He wasn't alone. A few steps behind him, dressed in a sleek black dress and a pearl necklace, was Juliet. She was carrying a leather-bound folder, her expression one of polite, resolute determination. She was holding a thick stack of papers, the document of my potential belonging. Leon's face was a mask of apology. He was apologizing for a betrayal he hadn't even committed yet. My hope didn't just flicker out. It was extinguished, crushed under the heel of a woman who had no intention of letting me build any history of my own, unless it was a footnote in hers. As they made their way towards my table, a cold, clear certainty washed over me. I was done being a character in her story, and I was about to rewrite the ending. I watched them weave through the tables, the candlelight catching the edges of Juliet's pearl necklace, making them look like tiny, perfect teeth. Leon's eyes were fixed on me, pleading, begging for understanding before he'd even said a word. That look alone told me everything I needed to know. He hadn't come to defend me. He hadn't come to draw a line in the sand. He'd come to deliver me to his mother, wrapped in a bow of obligation. I felt my hand instinctively curl around the stem of my water glass, the ruby on my finger catching the light and scattering tiny red fragments across the white tablecloth. It looked like a spray of blood. "Darling," Juliet said, her voice dripping with false warmth as she slid into the booth opposite me. She placed the leather-bound folder on the table with a soft, deliberate thud. "I hope you don't mind. Leon mentioned you were having dinner, and I simply couldn't resist joining. We have so much to discuss before the big day." Leon slid in beside me, close but somehow miles away. He reached for my hand under the table, but I pulled it away and rested both palms flat on the tabletop. I needed to see everything. I needed to feel in control of my own body, even if the rest of my life was spiraling out of my grasp. "Actually," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I thought we were having dinner. Just us. That was the agreement." Juliet's smile didn't falter. She tilted her head, the silver streaks in her hair catching the light. "Oh, but this is so much better. I've had Mr. Henderson draw up the final documents. Just a few minor adjustments to the prenuptial agreement. I thought we could go over them together, like a family." The word family landed in my chest like a stone. I looked at Leon. His jaw was tight, his hands clasped together on the table in front of him. He looked like a little boy who'd been caught stealing cookies, waiting for his punishment. He couldn't even look at me. "Leon," I said, my voice quiet but firm. Is this what you wanted? You said we'd talk. You said it would be just us. He swallowed hard. I know, babe, I know. But my mom just wanted to help. She's been so involved in the planning, and she just wanted to make sure everything was secure. I cut him off, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. Everything is secure. That's what she wants, right? To make sure I can't touch a single brick of that precious family history. The couple at the next table glanced over, their forks pausing mid-bite. I didn't care. The waiter appeared, a young man with a nervous smile, but Juliet waved him away with a flick of her manicured fingers. We'll order in a moment, thank you. She opened the folder. The pages inside were crisp and white, covered in dense legal jargon that swam before my eyes. She slid a page across the table toward me, her finger tapping a highlighted section. This clause here simply states that in the event of a dissolution of the marriage, God forbid of course, the family heirlooms, including the engagement ring, would remain with the family. It's just common sense, darling. You understand. I stared at the page. The words blurred together. I thought about all those Sunday afternoons in her garden, all those cups of tea and stories about her travels. I thought about the way she'd held my hand when I told her about my own mother passing away when I was 19, the way she'd promised that she'd always be there for me. It had all been a performance. I was an actress in her play, and this was the scene where my character was supposed to graciously accept her role as a guest star in the family narrative. I'm not signing this, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. I felt Leon stiffen beside me. Juliet's eyes narrowed. Just a fraction, but that tiny movement was more revealing than any outburst. She wasn't used to being told no. She wasn't used to being challenged in public, especially not by me. I'm sorry, darling, she said, her voice still sweet, but with an edge now, like a knife wrapped in silk. Did I hear you correctly? You heard me, I said. I'm not signing a document that says I'm borrowing a ring. I'm not a library patron, Juliet. I'm your son's fiancé. Or at least I thought I was. Babe, Leon started, his hand reaching for my arm. Let's just talk about this calmly. No one's saying you're borrowing anything. It's just a formality. I heard you when you said it was a formality, I said, turning to face him fully. But it's not a formality, is it? It's a cage. It's her way of saying I'm welcome in her house as long as I never forget it's her house. As long as I never forget my place. Juliet's composure cracked. The sweet smile disappeared, replaced by something colder, harder. My dear girl, I've been nothing but kind to you. I've welcomed you into my home. I've shared family recipes, family stories, family traditions. And this is how you repay me? By making a scene in a restaurant? By insulting the very family you're about to join? I'm not insulting anyone, I said. I'm just refusing to be controlled. This ring, I held up my hand, the ruby catching the candlelight. This ring was a gift. It was given to me by your son because he said he loved me. He said I was the one who made the family history feel alive. But you don't want me to feel alive, do you? You want me to be a character in your story. You want me to stand in the background and smile while you direct everything? The table was silent. The entire restaurant seemed to have gone quiet, the ambient chatter fading into a muffled hum. I could feel eyes on me, curious and judgmental, but I didn't care. The dam had broken, and all the things I'd been holding back for months were pouring out. Leon's face was pale. He looked like a man watching his house burn down, powerless to stop it. Mom, maybe we should just— No, Leon, Juliet said, cutting him off with a sharp gesture. Let her speak. I want to hear exactly what she thinks of us. What she thinks of me after everything I've done. I took a breath. My heart was pounding, but my voice remained steady. You want to know what I think? I think you never wanted a daughter-in-law. I think you wanted a keeper for your son's legacy. Someone to manage the heirlooms, to carry on the traditions, to make sure the family name stayed pristine. You saw me as a vessel, Juliet, not a person. And I've spent 2 years trying to earn your approval, trying to be good enough, trying to fit into the mold you'd created. But I'm done. I'm exhausted. I pulled the ring off my finger. It felt strange, that sudden absence of weight. The ruby sat in my palm, warm from my skin, and for a moment I felt a pang of loss. It really was beautiful. It really did have a story, but it wasn't my story. It had never been my story. I placed the ring on the table, right in the middle of the white tablecloth, between the candle and the folder of legal documents. The light caught the facets of the ruby, and for a moment, it looked like a tiny dying ember. Here, I said. Take it back. I don't want to be part of a family that sees me as a threat. I don't want to be part of a marriage that comes with conditions and clauses and legal documents designed to keep me in my place. Juliet stared at the ring. Her face was unreadable, but I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers curled around the edge of the folder. She had won. That's what she was probably thinking. She had driven me away. She had protected her legacy, her precious family history, but there was something else in her eyes, something that looked almost like panic. You don't understand what you're doing, she said, her voice low and tight. That ring isn't just a piece of jewelry. It's a symbol of 5 generations of— I know what it is, I said. I've heard the stories. Great-grandmother, the painter who ran away to Paris, the musician, the grand parties. I know it all. But those stories aren't mine, Juliet. They never will be. And you made sure of that. Leon reached for my hand, his fingers brushing against my palm. Please, don't do this. Not like this. We can talk about this at home. We can figure something out. I looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were glassy, his face lined with worry and confusion. He was a good man. I still believe that. But he was a man who had never learned to stand up to his mother. He had spent his entire life in her orbit, and he didn't know how to break free. I couldn't save him from that. I couldn't be the one to teach him how to be his own person. That was something he had to learn on his own. Leon, I said, my voice softer now. I love you. I really do. But I can't marry you. Not like this. Not when I'm always going to be second. Not when I'm always going to be the outsider looking in. Tears welled in his eyes. Please, we can fix this. We can— No, I said. You can't fix this because you don't even see the problem. You think this is about a piece of paper? It's not. It's about trust. It's about respect. And your mother has shown me over and over again that she has neither for me. I slid out of the booth. My legs were shaking, but I forced myself to stand tall. I reached into my purse and pulled out a few bills, enough to cover my drink and a generous tip. I dropped them on the table. Juliet's eyes followed my movements. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She picked up the ring from the tablecloth, holding it between her thumb and forefinger like it was something contaminated. You're making a mistake, she said. You'll regret this. Everyone in this restaurant is watching you make a fool of yourself. I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized they were free. Let them watch, I said. Let them all watch. Because for the first time in 2 years, I'm not acting. I'm not performing. I'm just being myself. And apparently that's not good enough for your family. I turned to walk away, but then I stopped, because there was something I needed to say, something that had been building in my chest for months. I turned back. Juliet was still holding the ring. Leon was staring at the table, his shoulders slumped. You know what the worst part is? I said, it's not the ring. It's not the prenup. It's that I actually believed you loved me. I believed I was part of your family. I believed all those Sunday afternoons meant something, but they didn't. They were just preparation. You were training me. You were making me into the perfect little wife for your perfect little son. And you never once asked me what I wanted. I looked at Leon. And you, I said, you let it happen. You let her turn me into a project. You never defended me. You never stood up for me. You just sat there hoping I would go along with it, hoping I wouldn't make a scene, hoping I would just be quiet and compliant and grateful. He opened his mouth to say something, but I held up my hand. Don't, I said. Don't try to explain. Don't try to fix it. Just sit with it. For once, sit with the consequences of your choices. I left them there. I walked out of the restaurant, through the lingering stares and the muffled whispers, into the cool night air. The street was quiet, the only sound the distant hum of traffic and the echo of my heels on the pavement. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have a plan. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. I pulled out my phone and called my best friend, a woman named Tessa who had always been brutally honest with me. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, I said, my voice cracking. Are you busy? Never for you, she said. What happened? I took a deep breath. I called off the wedding. I did it in the middle of a restaurant. His mother was there. A long pause. Then Tessa's voice, sharp and fierce. Good, it's about damn time. Where are you? I'm coming to get you. I gave her the address and leaned against the brick wall of the building beside the restaurant. The night air smelled of damp pavement and exhaust fumes. The sky was clear, scattered with stars I hadn't noticed in months. I looked down at my bare left hand, at the faint tan line where the ring had been. It felt strange, that empty space. But it also felt right, like a weight had been lifted. The next few days were a blur. I moved my things out of our apartment while Leon was at work. I left the key on the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker we'd bought together. I didn't leave a note. What was there to say? Tessa let me crash on her couch. She brought me coffee in the mornings and wine in the evenings. And she didn't ask too many questions. She just let me exist. Let me process. Let me fall apart and slowly piece myself back together. But the drama wasn't over. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. A week later, I got a letter. It was from Juliet's lawyer. A cease and desist letter demanding I return all property belonging to the family estate. They threatened legal action if I didn't comply. I laughed when I read it. It was pure Juliet. She couldn't just let me go. She had to have the last word. She had to make sure I knew I had never really been part of the family. That I was just an interloper. A pretender. Someone who had been foolish enough to think she could belong. Tessa wanted me to fight it. She wanted me to hire a lawyer, to drag them through the mud, to make them pay for their pettiness. But I was tired. I was so incredibly tired. I just wanted to move on with my life, so I boxed up everything I had that could possibly be considered family property. A vintage brooch Juliet had given me for Christmas, a set of old recipe cards she'd copied for me, a photograph of Leon's grandfather that had always hung in our hallway. I shipped it all back to her. I didn't include a note. I didn't include a return address. I just wanted it to be over. But a week later, I got another letter. This one was different. It was handwritten on heavy cream paper, the kind Juliet used for her thank you notes. I opened it with trembling hands, unsure what to expect. It read, "Dear my name, you have made a grave mistake. Not for the reasons you think. The ring you returned is not the original heirloom. I gave you a replica. The real ring has been in a safety deposit box for 40 years. I wanted to test you, to see if you were worthy of the real one. You failed the test. But in failing, you have also proven something else. That you are not like the others. That you have integrity. That you are willing to walk away from something beautiful if it comes with the wrong strings attached. I misjudged you. I am sorry, but now I need your help. The real ring is missing, and I believe Leon took it." I read the letter 3 times, my mind reeling. The ring I had worn for 2 years was a fake, a test, and now the real one was gone. And Leon, gentle, passive Leon, was involved. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to feel. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't done with this family yet. They had pulled me back in, whether I liked it or not. I stared at the letter for what felt like hours. The words blurred and sharpened, as my brain tried to process the impossible. A replica. 2 years. 2 years of wearing a fake ring, of treating it like sacred treasure, of letting it define my place in a family that had been testing me from the very beginning. The betrayal was so complete, so meticulously planned, that I almost had to admire it. Almost. Tessa found me sitting on her couch, the letter clutched in my hands, my face pale. She took one look at me and poured a glass of wine without asking. "Read it," I said, handing her the letter. She read it in silence, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to fury. "Are you kidding me? She gave you a fake ring for 2 years? Who does that? A woman who sees life as a chess game," I said. "A woman who treats people like pawns." Tessa sat down beside me. "What are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. The logical part of my brain told me to throw the letter away, to block Juliet's number, to wash my hands of the entire dysfunctional family forever. But curiosity was a powerful drug, and I had always been weak to mysteries. The idea that Leon, my gentle, passive, conflict-avoidant Leon, had stolen the real ring was so out of character that I couldn't let it go. It was like finding out your golden retriever had been running an underground gambling ring. It just didn't compute. I called Leon the next morning. My hands were shaking as I dialed, but my voice was steady when he picked up. "We need to talk," I said. There was a long pause. Then his voice, soft and tired. "I know. I've been wanting to call you. I just didn't know what to say. Meet me at the park. The one by the old fountain." 1 hour. I hung up before he could respond. I didn't want to give him time to prepare, to craft excuses to get his story straight. I wanted the truth, raw and unfiltered, and I wanted to see his face when he realized I knew. The park was quiet that morning. A few joggers passed by, their footsteps rhythmic on the gravel path. The fountain in the center was dry, its basin filled with scattered leaves and forgotten pennies. I sat on the edge, watching the entrance, waiting. He arrived 10 minutes early. He was wearing the same navy jacket I'd bought him for his birthday, the one with the fraying cuff. His hair was messier than usual, his eyes ringed with dark circles. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. "Thanks for coming," I said, my voice neutral. He sat down beside me, keeping a careful distance. "I didn't think you'd ever want to see me again. I didn't think I would either. But then your mother sent me a letter." His face went pale. "What did she say?" I pulled the letter from my pocket and handed it to him. He read it slowly, his jaw tightening with each line. When he finished, he crumpled it in his fist and let out a long, shaky breath. "Of course she did," he muttered. "Of course she brought you into this." "Into what, Leon? What's going on?" He was silent for a long moment. The fountain behind us dripped, a slow, sad rhythm. A pigeon landed nearby, pecking at the ground with mechanical indifference. "The real ring," he finally said. "She's right, I took it. But not for the reasons she thinks." I waited. I didn't interrupt. I just let him find his words. "After you left the restaurant," he continued, "after you walked out, I sat there for a long time. My mother was furious. She was already calling her lawyer, talking about how you'd humiliated her, how she'd make sure you regretted it. And I just sat there. I didn't say a word. I didn't defend you. I didn't defend myself." He looked at me, his eyes wet. "I've been thinking about that moment every single day. How I just let her steamroll everything, how I let her drive you away. And I realized something. I've never stood up to her. Not once, not in 32 years. Every time she wanted something, I gave in. Every time she pushed, I backed down. I thought it was easier that way. I thought it kept the peace. You were wrong. I said quietly. I know. He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. I know. So I went home that night. I was angry. Not at you. At myself, at her. And I snapped. I went to the safety deposit box. I took the real ring. I told myself I was just looking at it, just reminding myself of what I'd lost. But then I got scared that she'd find out, so I hid it. Where? He hesitated. I can't tell you. Not yet. But I can tell you this. I'm not giving it back. Not to her. Not to anyone. I stared at him. He wasn't the same man I'd left in the restaurant. There was a new hardness in his jaw, a new fire in his eyes. For the first time, I saw something other than passivity. I saw defiance. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why did you agree to meet me? Because I need your help, he said. She's going to come after me. She's already called the police. Not to press charges, but to make my life difficult. She's told them I stole something precious. Something irreplaceable. She's going to drag me through the mud unless I give it back. And you won't. No, I won't, because it's not hers. It was never hers. It belonged to my great-grandmother, the painter who ran away to Paris. You remember the story? I nodded. Here's what my mother never told you. Leon said. Great-grandmother didn't run away with a musician. She ran away from a violent husband, and the ring wasn't a gift. It was her escape fund. She sold it when she got to Paris. The ring I gave you, the replica, that was just a prop my mother had made. The real one, the one in the safety deposit box. That's the original. But it's not some treasured family heirloom. It's a reminder of a secret my mother has been hiding for decades. My head was spinning. What secret? My great-grandmother wrote letters to her sister. She talked about everything. The abuse, the fear, the escape. And the ring? She said she sold it to a jeweler in Paris, but the jeweler gave her a fake in return. He swindled her. She never got the money. She died penniless. I felt sick. So the ring in the safety deposit box is the fake, the jeweler's fake. My mother has been parading around for years, acting like it's this great family treasure. But it's not. It's a symbol of my great-grandmother's suffering, and I won't let her use it anymore. I won't let her use any of it. We sat in silence. The pigeon had flown away. The sky was overcast, gray and heavy. So what do you need from me? I asked. I need you to help me tell the truth, Leon said. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I failed you, but you're the only person who ever saw through her. You're the only person who ever stood up to her. And I think you might know how to make her listen. I thought about it. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn Juliet's approval. All the Sunday afternoons. All the tea and cakes and stories. All the lies. You know what the irony is? I said I wanted to belong so badly. I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. And she knew that. She used it against me. She made me feel like I was the problem. Like I wasn't good enough. And for 2 years, I believed her. But you don't anymore. No, I said. I don't. And I'm not going to let her do the same to you. We made a plan. It was simple, but it was risky. We would confront Juliet together. We would tell her everything we knew, and we would force her to face the truth about her family's history. The confrontation happened at her house, the same house where I'd spent so many Sunday afternoons, the same garden where I'd sipped tea and listened to stories that were apparently all lies. Juliet was waiting for us in the parlor, dressed in a silk blouse and tailored slacks. She looked like a queen holding court, but her eyes were wary. Leon, she said, her voice cold. I see you've brought your ex-fiancé. How dramatic. Sit down, mother. Leon said. We need to talk. She didn't sit. She crossed her arms and stared at us with barely concealed contempt. I have nothing to say to either of you. You stole from me, Leon. You stole a family heirloom. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done, Leon said. I've taken the ring you've been using to control everyone for years, and I know the truth about it. I know it's not real. The color drained from Juliet's face. What are you talking about? The real ring was sold in Paris, I said, by your husband's grandmother. She was swindled. She never saw a penny. The ring you've been guarding so carefully is the fake the jeweler gave her. You've been protecting a lie. Juliet's composure shattered. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted. And for a moment, she looked like a frightened old woman rather than the imperious matriarch I'd always known. How do you know about that? She whispered. I found the letters, Leon said, in the attic, behind a loose board. Great-grandmother's sister kept them. All of them. They've been there for decades, waiting for someone to find them. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Juliet sank into the nearest chair, her face pale, her hands clasped in her lap. I didn't know, she said. I never knew. The ring was passed down to me by my mother-in-law. She told me the same stories. She said it was a treasure. She said it was our legacy. It was a lie, I said. And you passed that lie on to us. You made us believe it was something sacred, but it was just a bauble. And you used it to control people. You used it to test people. You used it to make people feel small. Juliet looked up at me. For the first time, I saw something other than anger in her eyes. I saw exhaustion. I saw defeat. You're right, she said. I used it. I used it because I was afraid. Afraid of being forgotten. Afraid of losing my place in in the world. Afraid that without the story, without the ring, I was just an old woman with nothing left. She took a deep breath. I gave you a replica because I wanted to see if you were worthy of the real thing. But the truth is, I was never worthy of it either. I was just the keeper of a lie. And I've been so afraid of that lie being discovered that I've driven away everyone who might have loved me. Leon stepped forward. Mother, I'm not angry. I just want you to let go. Let go of the ring. Let go of the story. We don't need them. We can build something new. She nodded slowly. And then, with trembling hands, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the ring I had returned to her at the restaurant. The replica. She placed it on the table between us. I'm sorry, she said. To both of you. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know if her apology was sincere. I didn't know if she would change. But I knew that I had done something important. I had broken the cycle. I had told the truth. Later that evening, Leon and I walked through the garden. The oak tree stood where it always had, its branches reaching toward the darkening sky. We sat beneath it, the same spot where I'd once believed I was being welcomed into a family. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, he said. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe. Like I don't have to pretend. Like I can just be. I looked at him. The man who had let his mother control him for so long. The man who had finally found the courage to stand up. I'm proud of you, I said. He smiled. I'm proud of me too. We sat in silence, watching the stars appear one by one. The garden was quiet, peaceful. The air smelled of earth and lavender. The ring, I said after a long moment. The real one. The fake. Whatever it is. What are you going to do with it? Leon pulled it from his pocket. It caught the light, glowing softly in his palm. I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to donate the money to a shelter for women. It's what great-grandmother would have wanted. It's the only way to honor what she went through. I nodded. It felt right. It felt like the end of a very long story. I didn't get back together with Leon. Some wounds are too deep, and some trust is too broken. But we found a way to be friends. We found a way to support each other without the weight of a relationship we'd both tried so hard to make work. And in the end, I think that was the real victory. Not the ring. Not the family legacy, but the courage to walk away from something that wasn't right and to help someone else find their own path. I moved on. I found a new apartment, a new job, a new sense of purpose. And when I look back on those 2 years of my life, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude, because without that experience, I never would have learned the most important lesson of all, that you can't belong to someone else's story. You have to write your own. The ring is gone. The lies have been exposed. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. On my own. Writing my own future, one page at a time.